Welcome back. So last segment we spoke about the control pillar of the enterprise mobility strategy. This is the time we're going to close up here and try to tie these things all together. And then most importantly at the end, we really like to discuss what this means. Like, so what, right? We have these pillars, so what? Well, how does that actually play out, in the enterprise today? Where are we going in the future? Things like that. So maybe first of all, Adnan, we'd appreciate it if you could just talk about how, these three pillars we've talked about: connect, move, and control. These aren't just three completely separate subjects, right? These are all related somehow, right?
Absolutely. So that's a good point. And when I go out and I make calls and I sit in front of my customers and in front of our solutions providers, I always lead with the connect, move, and control strategy. And the reason that that's so important is, as we've indicated earlier in the earlier segments, the importance of each one standalone. But at the end of the day, the question I always ask is, so why do you want that device? How are you going to access it? What are you trying to access? And then the second question then is always, so how does that back-end infrastructure look like? Do you have the right content? Do you have the right servers? So it's all about what I call mobilizing the enterprise. Whether it's taking your applications and mobilizing and allowing your work staff, your assets to be accessible by your customers, by your suppliers, by your vendors, you have to be able to go across these three pillars to ensure that you've got the right devices, you've got the right content that folks are trying to access, and it's being secured, it's being transmitted accurately, and it's got the utmost analytics and optimization around it so that you know who and what is accessing it at what time. And then most importantly, where we see a lot of bottlenecking is in the core infrastructure. And that's why it's so important. So you have to know what you have in place. So as you're rolling out a connect, move, control strategy, that you're addressing each component. And as you've indicated very, very accurately, Brad, is that yes, they don't stand alone. They can in terms of the deployment, but at the end of the day, all three have to come together. So if you got a really strong, powerful device and you have good content, but you've got a weak network, that's going to impact the efficacy of your deployment and of people being able to access. As well, if you've got an aggressive device, you've got a very robust pipeline, but you don't have the content, or that content has not been designed to where it's being able to be mobilized, to be accessed via a tablet or a device, then what good is it, right? So ultimately, you need to be able to go across all three components and determine, as we'd indicated earlier again, what kind of application, what kind of vertical, what kind of segment, who is accessing, what is the role and the policies within the organization, and then from there you design a network. And I will say that more than likely you'll have at least two of the four. You'll at least have a wired and a wireless infrastructure, or you'll have a wireless infrastructure, a wireless LAN infrastructure, and a wired infrastructure. So you're going to have 2 to 3 of these networks inevitably that you would have to address. So again, very interwoven, and you've got to go across all three pillars to ensure the utmost connectivity is done robustly, irrespective of the device and who's accessing.
I think that's very powerful, and I think I can speak in real life. So many customers have came to me and said, I'd like to take this iPad, this tablet, and do this on it. Now they've not thought about the connectivity. They've not thought about the connection with them. They just love the idea of the interface. They love the idea of the portability. Right?
Absolutely.
I've got this thing and I want to do something with it. Then when you lay out the whole solution, it's, well, maybe that's not going to work. I don't have a budget, or you know what, I don't have the stuff available. I would like to close with a real life example. Take your pick, man. Take your pick of anything in all these years of journey where mobility has improved the human condition. Something really cool. I know I've been on calls with you, and I know some of the concepts are just mind-blowing, and it's really amazing. But take your pick. Tell us somewhere it's really changed human condition.
This is a great question, actually, Alan, and I'll tell you why. Having been international again for so many years, I had the fortunate opportunity to be the vice chairman of the World Health Organization working at the United Nations. I served for 2 years, a voluntary role, and in that role I was responsible for designing the telemedicine backbone for a lot of these underdeveloped countries in Africa and East Asia. And it was basically a program whereby the World Health Organization would donate $1 for every dollar that the local governments would put in to upgrade and digitize medical records and enable access to healthcare systems across these rural and remote areas. And so we were, at the time in my role, I was working for a Fortune 500. We were providing devices and other type of equipment as kind of a contribution to the good. And we obviously wanted to sell more of that product. So my job was really to go out and design and talk to the different healthcare providers across all of these different countries to try to figure out one thing. They were taking around a plain phone, and they would take a needle to take blood and to test that blood. Are they HIV? Do they have diabetes? They would take census of the village. They would understand what type of blood types they are. This information was never gathered before. If you could imagine a rural little village in the middle of nowhere in Africa or in the Middle East or in Asia, that nobody knew that there was 15 people that lived there, of which 8 were women and 7 were boys and men. Now they've got a true census, and then on top of that, we would send out what we called field nurses that would go out and look and how many of them are diseased, how many of them are sick, what's the average age group. So they would actually gather all this information, and it was a simple application on the phone through the cellular network that they would put this information in real time. Now that census, we know how many folks are there, how many are sick, how many have diseases, and then that information actually helped not only that local village to ensure if they were sick or had some sort of disease that they could be treated, but now we have a record of who they are and where they are. And if we needed to be able to help them, then we could do distant medicine, where now through a tablet, that individual in the middle of nowhere underneath of a grass shack with dirt floors could sit there and actually administer distant medicine with a doctor in Johannesburg or a doctor in Germany, giving them instruction on how to perform a local type of surgery or a local analysis on a particular disease of some sort. That, for me, not only changed my life, but I was part of the forethought of how this was being deployed. And when you see it in reality, it really makes stupid Angry Birds look like a waste of time. It really is. I mean, we take it for granted. You're talking about a device that's taken blood pressure, taken people's census, how many people have diabetes, HIV, malaria, just name it, and you see it, and it's nothing more than a simple application. And at the end of the day, it was sending a text message back with the data. And that data was input into the main systems on the back end in order to provide a better health service to many of these remote villages. So for me, that is the power of mobility, which we would have never been able to do it before. Because what's the alternative, right? You take their blood pressure, you write it down on documents, then you go back and you got to upload that information. You got to go back and test the blood to figure out what's going on. So you got to take blood samples. A lot of times it takes you days in sub-Saharan Africa to get across places. Your blood's going to be tainted. Now you're doing everything at the point of contact, accurately, securely, and getting the information at the point of contact when it matters most. That is true mobility.
I tell you what, that was very touching, and I didn't know the answer to that question. We didn't practice this. It was just threw at you, and that's a mobile strategy, right? That's most folks, when they hear mobile strategy, it's like, expand my Wi-Fi, make it go by the pool, right? make me go further. But man, it has absolutely been an honor. I know I've learned a tremendous amount. And Brad, do you want to close us down?
Sure. Man, it's so, again, that was a tremendous story. It's so touching. And I besides the thought that you put into that was amazing. And one of the things that you said, which is so true, man, is that it does take that, between the flash and the bang, right? As you said, the taking of the vitals to what are we going to do about that? I mean, how that shrinks that. I think that really is what we're all attempting to do, and what the things that we're trying to attack when we talk about any sort of mobile strategy, business strategy, things like this. And so, man, it's so good to see and hear how that could play out, again, both in professional life, but also that as well. That was an amazing story. We certainly hope that this has been educational and helpful for you. I know that, man, it has been an honor to have you as well.
Thank you.
We thank you so much, and man, we look forward to seeing you guys next time.
Thank you.